Welcome to the Jag Bros podcast. I am one of your hosts, Jack, along with my two brothers, JT and Joey. And we are diehard Jaguars fans, which means that this is the low point of the season. But as diehard Jag fans, we know we've been a lot lower than this. But we are coming off 3 games losing in a row, losing bad to the Ravens Sunday night, 23-7, where we keep shooting ourselves in the foot over and over again. And hey, let's just start right here. I don't know where y'all are going to take this, but how are we feeling right now?
Extremely frustrated with this team and really with the season. You just see how much talent that they have and the possibility that this team could do if they could just not commit so many unforced errors. It seems like the more they try not to commit the errors, the more they commit them. So they need to play a lot less tight and just somehow find fun with this game again, because pressure's all off. We don't care, I would say, anymore of getting number 1 seed in the AFC, thinking that we're actually going to get to the Super Bowl. All those expectations are gone. Just get to the playoffs and start over, clean slate, and redefine yourself as a team in the playoffs. That's all that we can do right now. Figure out how to win and learn just to cut the mistakes in half. It's okay to have a few mistakes. Like you have 1, you have 2, you don't let them compound. But this team seems to let it get to them. It compounds. They get in their head. And there is a stat. If we are losing at halftime, then we have lost. We are 0-6 when we are losing at halftime, and we're 8-0 when we're winning at halftime. This team does not have the emotional strength to come back and win against any of these teams, unfortunately. They have to be winning. They have to have everything going right for them. You got to learn to let things slide and just play loose in the second half as well.
Joey, you said the pressure's off?
Yes, obviously, because this team, when the pressure's on, folds. You got to
take the team folds when the pressure's on. I'm going to say that the pressure could not even be higher than it is right now. You want to know why? Because a loss on Sunday and a win by the Colts and the Texans on Sunday, and not only do you not have the division anymore, you're probably going to be out of the playoffs because of this log jam at 8-6 for the rest of the AFC. Like the real reality is you probably have to go 3-0, maybe 2-1 gets you still into the playoffs, but you are right there on the point of not even being in postseason play. So how am I feeling after the game? Well, for about 2 hours, I was depressed. I couldn't believe it. How we lost 23-7 again. Another blowout on national television with the national media, this time with the NBC broadcasting than somebody else broadcasting. So every single announcing crew gets to talk about how terrible the Jaguars have looked on prime time. And I'm depressed. I can't fall asleep. It's probably about 1:30, 2 o'clock by the time I finally am able to fall asleep after the depression has gone on. And now that depression has just turned into frustration. I think you nailed it, Joey. That is how I'm feeling, because every single time the Jaguars have called it a quote-unquote marquee game or a measuring stick game, or anytime they've remotely started to punch up in class, you want to know what happens? We fall back down. The Chiefs game at home, huge game. Hey, we were close to beating them in Kansas City in the playoffs. Let's see how we do in the regular season. It could be like the Patriots in 2018. Nope. Chiefs win 17-9. Okay, fast forward a few weeks. We're on a 5-0 win streak. You're home again, hosting the 49ers. What happens? You lose. Okay, you bounce back with a couple of wins. If you beat the Bengals, you probably are right back in contention for AFC supremacy. What do? You lose at home on overtime, followed by a bad Browns loss, and now you just got routed by the Ravens. We are not where we want to be. We're a very slightly above average team. And oh, by the way, the Bucs are the hottest team in the NFL right now outside of the 49ers. And we have to go back on the road to them on Sunday afternoon. So yeah, I have zero confidence in this team moving forward at this point.
There's definitely still pressure, but I'm taking the expectation off this team. I don't even expect them to make the playoffs anymore. I'm just saying, go out and play your best football. Whether you make the playoffs or not, I don't care anymore. That's how poorly I feel about this season. It's just quit with the expectation. This team folds under expectation. Sunday night football, fold. Monday night football, fold. It is expectations that is making this team tight, is making them get in their head, and they think that they need to be Superman. They need to have a zero air game, and they got to do all this stuff. And then what do you see? You see people fumbling the ball when they're not even touched. You see dumb interceptions, running the wrong routes, bad coaching. It's just a compounding of mistakes. It's not just one person or one position. It's the entire team. I have no expectations for this team anymore. Just go out and play well. Whether you win or lose, I don't care anymore.
Wow. And this is after Joey has predicted a Jaguars win in every game but this Ravens game, which, to your credit, Joey, now wasn't as close as any of us thought, but you did call us losing to the Ravens. And, I was thinking about, this is our second losing streak of the season. And I thought about, what got us out of that losing streak at the beginning of the year? And you know what I think it was? It was JT's rant after the Houston Texans game. So I'll be curious to see if we have a rant today from JT and if that can somehow save the Jaguars. But in this episode, we are going to break down the offense of performance as always. Of course, there's going to be a lot to talk about there with only 7 points, but a ton of missed opportunities. We're going to break down the defensive performance, which in some ways was stronger than the scoreboard will even show. We'll talk about special teams and coaching, and then close with, hey, can the Jaguars turn it around? If so, how? But JT, we should hit a few of the bright spots and any game balls that we should pass out from Sunday.
None. There were no bright spots on the game. You got blown out on national television again against a Ravens team who historically we play pretty well against. I think one of the most frustrating things about this team, and something that didn't get talked about last year enough, is considering how healthy we actually were for the playoffs. The reason why we were able to beat some teams we had no business beating and being able to make the run that we were able to do is because I think we were the most healthy team last year. Now we're experiencing some similar level of injury regression year over year. And oh, by the way, what did we do all offseason? We did absolutely nothing to improve this team. We have a second and third round guys who are just completely irrelevant. You made almost no moves during the offseason, and Ezra Cleveland is nice as a good move right before the trade deadline. But realistically, your team, especially on defense, is no better than it was last year, if not slightly worse with the loss of Arden Key. And then offensively, what? You're probably your worst, because Press Taylor is clearly a much worse play caller than Doug Peterson has. And the magic and the comebacks and the fun times that we experienced last year are gone. And we also needed some miraculous victories last year, coming back from 14 or 17 or 28 or however many points in so many of those games down the stretch. We aren't a team that believes we can come back from behind, coupled with the fact that I think we way overestimated how good our roster actually is.
Here we go. JT rant round 2. Everything that could go wrong for the Jaguars goes wrong. So not only do the Jaguars lose bad at home again, fans booing at the end of the game from that performance, you also have the Colts go out and win, the Texans go out and win. So you're sitting at a 3-way tie. And look, the Colts and the Texans, you want to talk about injuries, they're both playing with their backup quarterbacks, and they're tied with us. And, I know no expectations, Joey, for this team, but how embarrassing is it going to be if we lose the division to a team that's playing with their backup quarterback? So you got to go 3-0. But I will say this, I've been upset, frustrated. I'm glad we're recording on Tuesday, because it would have been way worse Sunday night or Monday. And, there's always going to be fans that go way off the deep end saying, we need to go fire Doug Peterson. No, Doug Peterson is the best coach we've had in a long, long time, maybe ever. But he said this, look, you've got to critique, you've got to work on the mistakes, and there's a lot of them, but you also have to remember you do need to stay positive. So we are going to have a few positive things sprinkled throughout. And
positive? I'm positive that Press Taylor should be fired. We'll talk
Oh,
more
yeah.
about this in the offensive section, but guess what? How many times did we watch Trevor Lawrence wipe the play? It feels like every single week it happens more and more and more frequently. And we outlined the fact that the defensive coordinator is very good. He schemes and creates game plans based off of what the offense does. Now, none of us are like expert X's and O's guys. We're not going to sit there and break down the film for you every single time. But if Trevor is seeing things that he's constantly having to wipe the play, it's because the defensive coordinator is absolutely reading Press Taylor's mail, and he knows exactly what the play is going to be called. He's extremely predictable. And again, we'll talk more about this on the offensive side, but the positive here is I'm positive Press Taylor is not the answer offensively.
You're 100% correct, JT. Press Taylor may be the most obvious offensive play caller ever. It is so easy to read what plays that we're going to call. It's just ridiculous, kind of feels like an elementary style offense. I do want to give out one game ball. There were just a few people that I felt were giving a lot of effort and played well, and my game ball has to go to Jamal Agnew. He just returned, had the one touchdown catch, and he also was returning like a madman. He was taking the ball out. You could tell that he wanted to help flip this field and start a fire in the offense, and no one was catching on to the fire that he was bringing. He would go get a huge return, flip the field, and then the offense would go out and sputter some more. This team does not seem to have the fire, and it needs to be more of a team effort than 1 to 2 people trying to bring this team back alive.
Agree 1,000%, Joe. And this team still just hasn't gelled. And that's a massive problem because at this point, I think we can't just say, oh, we'll fix it next week, because we keep saying that. And we're now week 15, 14 games in for the Jaguars, and we're still not playing well. But there were a few bright spots. And no, JT, I'm not giving it to anyone on the offense. You scored 7 points on prime time, no game balls. But yes, Agnew did have some great special teams plays for us, and the only offensive score as well for us. But defensively, really two guys. And it's a tough decision for me between Walker, who played very well, and Jenkins. But I have to give it to Jenkins because I felt like he played the hardest of anyone. He was all over the field, had 6 tackles. He had that huge interception, jumping that pass in the second quarter, which we thought was going to build momentum, but unfortunately not. And then he also sacked Lamar Jackson on a great safety blitz. So he looked great. And so I know we'll break down the defense more, but wanted to give a game ball to Rayshawn Jenkins.
Yeah, the only bright spot last night was the defense. And what do you know? It's the only one that actually has a competent coordinator. With that, we'll go ahead and try to break down this offense and what you can call an offensive team, but I don't know if they are a team. This is the most disjointed untogetherness of a offensive team that I have ever seen. Not a single game this year have I been like, they are clicking, they're on the same page. The wide receivers and Trevor are on the same page. The running to throwing combination, it's working. Never this whole season have I said we are getting it done. It has always been sparks and sputters and just so disjointed, and that has to go to coaching. Your players have the talent. It is your job to bring them together and have them work as a team. That is your job as a coach, to bring this team together, and you can't say that it is getting done. It has not gotten done once this season. It didn't even get done during the preseason. The offense still looked bad. I remember when the first team would come out against second teams in the preseason, and they still looked bad and disjointed. I was like, well, it's the preseason. And then I said that in the beginning, oh, well, it's the first 5 games. They're getting it together. There's Calvin Ridley. He hasn't played with Trevor that much, but you know what? There's been way too much time, and it's still not together, and it is the coach's fault. I don't think Doug has had that great of a year. I'm not saying that he needs to be fired or anything like that. I'm sure he can bring it around, but Press has not done his job, and this is a firing offense. Someone has to fix it now.
on paper, this offense is better, right? You do get Calvin Ridley, who should be an upgrade over Marvin Jones. And while he's certainly disappointed what we hoped he could be, he is better than Marvin Jones. And yet, even when you've had everybody healthy, even when you've had all your weapons, the offense still feels clunky. We've talked about all year how many times the Jaguars get in plus territory and not score. This time, not only were we in plus territory, we were inside the freaking red zone 3 times and came away with 0 points. 5 times inside the 40. In the first half, we had 4 times inside the 40. I think they said it tied a Jaguars franchise record for most amount of times inside the 40 without coming up with any points. It's unbelievable. The amount of miscues and miscommunications and uninspiring play calls that we have the entire time. And one of the things I talked about, and Joey and Jack and I were talking offline, is, you know what? Man, it feels weird. I feel like we almost never throw the ball over the middle of the field. The only time I can remember us throwing the ball over the middle of the field yesterday was when we threw it to Farrell, which was a beautiful catch down the middle of the field. You want to know how many times we've actually thrown the ball, attempted the ball deep middle so far? 6 times. The entire season we've done that. Less than 1% of our entire passing offense we average doing that. Even short middle is only about 13% of our offensive plays. If you compare that to the 49ers and compare that to the Dolphins and some other teams that have a very good passing attack, most of them are somewhere between 18 to 20% over the middle. And we're way down at 13%. And it feels like we're just leaving things out on the table. Slants should be there with Ridley. Slant should be there with Ingram. Unlocking Ingram further down the field than just right around the line of scrimmage every time seems like a strategy that could work.
Wow, that's crazy. Only 6 passes all season deep down the middle. And you think about, you have one of the top, I would say 3, but at least top 5 tight ends in the league. And hey, I saw this on Twitter. Press Taylor is the screen king. And the Ravens knew it. They game planned for it. And we just kept going to a screen over and over and over again. And it just hasn't worked this season. And yeah, Joe, you said it's elementary, right? We don't have creativity when it comes to play calling. And a great defense is going to hold us to 7, 10, 13 points every time.
You know, a little secret too, the offensive line actually played really well. They played really well compared to their expectations. They only get 1 sack, and honestly, Trevor did a nice job getting the ball out more often than not. That was not the issue. The issue, again, was play calling. And even at the beginning of the game, we're getting some nice 8 to 10 yard runs. You want to know why? It's because Baltimore made a strategic bet that A, Jacksonville was not going to be able to do this on them all game long, and B, we are going to cheat toward the pass, especially the pass on the edges more often than not, because that's how you slow down Jacksonville. You can take away those things. They're not going to have the discipline to stick to running the ball up the middle with ETN all the time. And they can cheat by having more numbers covering pass than trying to stop the run. And you know what? It worked perfectly. And the Jaguars yet again were held to single digits offensively.
Yeah, I don't understand the protecting of Press Taylor, to be honest, because he calls plays as if Trevor Lawrence is a backup quarterback. He does a lot of dink and dunks, a lot of screens, a lot of elementary routes. We run the out route, stop route, and fly. That's it. We don't throw it over the middle. They don't have any digs. They don't have any sort of quick slant. It's so frustrating to watch. And I can sit there and tell you exactly what play we are about to run. It's 3rd and 6. It's an out route right to the edge. It's going to Calvin Ridley or Zay Jones. And if it's a 2nd and long, 1st and kind of long, it's a dink and dunk to Evan Ingram to kind of make it a little shorter. It's just the most predictable offense in the freaking world. And you have a amazing talent, and you are drawing plays as if you have CJ Beathard starting and a bunch of backup wide receivers. Why in the world would you have a play running at the 5-yard line and you're running a little out route that doesn't get to the end zone? That play should never be drawn in the red zone. No one is ever open because it's such easy plays to cover.
Speaking of lack of creativity, I think we need to have a moment of silence for the Jaguars running game because after the first quarter, it has died. The Jaguars cannot run the ball. Yes, JT, I thought our pass blocking was pretty strong. The analytics say it was actually really strong in this game, going against the team that leads the NFL in sacks. But I don't know if it's blocking or lack of creativity, but not being able to run the ball and being so one-dimensional has killed us. So in our 5-game win streak earlier in the season, we were averaging over 120 yards a game on the ground. In the last 3 games in this losing streak, we're averaging 68 yards on the ground. We're getting about half the yards we were when we were playing a lot better in the middle of the season. And we're forcing Trevor to throw 93 times in the last 2 games, another game where he's well over 40 passes. We're asking him to carry this entire offense on his back.
I'll tell you right now why that is a problem. It's not the offensive line, which we all thought it was. It's not the running back. The second we go down in points, he does not hand the ball off ever again. He hands the ball off at the very beginning of the game because it's 0-0. We ran the ball well when we win because we are winning. As I said in the beginning of this episode, we are 8-0 when we are winning at halftime, and it's because we can still run the ball. The second, it doesn't matter if we're down 3 points. It was 10-7 at the end of the third quarter, yet we're still not running the ball ever. We're only down 3 points. We can still run the ball. It's not like we're down 21 points. The second Press Taylor feels we are down by only 3 points, the run is gone. It is abandoned by Press Taylor and the play caller. It is his fault, and he needs to be pitchforked and ran out of this city because he is terrible.
Exactly. I mean, ETN only had 10 carries all game last Sunday night. Majority of those were on the first 2 drives. And we're actually relatively successful. And yes, occasionally we'll run the ball in the second half, and it's like, oh, we didn't get anything, so now we should just go pass. And I get it, but you're also running in very predictable run situations. You're not never actually running the ball when you should, when it was unexpected. You know what else is extremely frustrating? And again, comes back to play calling, is how often are we seeing Trevor have to white plays at the line of scrimmage, but we're also seeing the ball snapped. It feels like under 5 seconds every single time. It's why the Jaguars are one of the most heavily false started teams in the entire NFL. It's not like we're running an extremely amount of like motion or anything like that before the game, no more than like some of the other teams. But our guys are staying in that position for so long. We average almost 2 false start penalties a game. Compare that to like some of the other playoff worthy teams. They're all right around 1 per game. Guy, he's not getting the play in fast enough. Trevor's constantly having to re-diagnose the play because it's so predictable. And it seems like the plays that are usually pretty good is when Trevor has to audible. So either we're going to need to wait 3 years for Trevor to continue to get better to where the point where he's Peyton Manning and can just do everything at the line of scrimmage, or you have to replace the offensive play caller because it's unacceptable.
You want to know a play that ran really well last year and we have not run it? I don't believe we've run it once this season. Draw plays. Pretend to drop back and then you hand it off. You got to make the defense be guessing. We only run it when we've thrown it a bunch of times and it's first down and we're like, you know what? It's time we run the ball. And that's about it. You know, the best times that we've ever had on running, it's when it was like 3rd and 2nd and everyone thought we were throwing it because that's all we've done this season. And we ran the ball and we actually ended up getting like 5 to 6 yards because no one was guessing that we were running it. He only ever runs the ball when everyone knows it's a run. You have to mix it up. It's called chess. He's playing checkers and he's playing it with a toddler with suggestions on. Like, it's stupid. And Doug Peterson, you got fired from the Eagles because you protected Press Taylor so much. I found the article. People were calling for Press Taylor's head in Philadelphia, and now in Jacksonville, people are calling for his head again. Do not make the same mistake and try to protect this man. Kick him to the curb. The reason the team was better last year is because we had Jim Bob to protect Press Taylor. Guess what? We don't have Jim Bob Cooter anymore. He's in the Colts, and he's doing an incredible job with the Colts. And then we lose Jim Bob Cooter, and the Jaguars offense sputters. It's not a team. It doesn't play well. The calls are terrible. The plays drawn up are terrible. And why is that? Because there is no longer a actual sufficient person running this offense.
Jim Bob Cooter, for those that don't know, was the passing game coordinator for the Jaguars last year. And as Joey pointed out, he's now the offensive coordinator in Indianapolis.
Who has taken a team that no longer has Jonathan Taylor, who has been playing with Gardner Minshew, a backup quarterback, a not so great offensive line, some wide receivers that aren't great, and yet they are tied with us now at 8-6. That is a good offensive coordinator, not whatever you call Press Taylor.
You know, I said this earlier. I think anytime you have the same problem over and over this late in the season, something's got to change. The hard thing is going to be, I would love Doug Pearson to just take over play calling, but it seems like most likely this is not going to be a move till the offseason. But there's no shot that the Jaguars wait 3 years. There's no way fans are going to allow that you go prime time and only score 7 points in a game that you need to win to keep that division lead, to keep one game ahead of everybody else. Press Taylor, the offense is broken. I love what you said earlier, Joey. There hasn't been a game where you look at it and say, yes, I think that the offense was an A+. We just haven't clicked all year. I think some of that's personnel, some of that's offensive line, but a lot of that falls on play calling, and there's no creativity to it. And you see this again and again, why the Jaguars get stopped all the time when they get down inside the 20, inside the 10, inside the 5, because that's when you have to be most creative. And what do? We're always going for those plays right in the back of the end zone. I do believe Ridley was clearly inbounds, but yet again, we're trying to get a tiptoe drag for beautiful, perfect play instead of using some creativity. So I wish, and I think 90+%, maybe not that high, but at least probably pretty close, 90+% of Jaguars fans are ready for Press Taylor to be gone, but I just don't think it happens till the offseason. I do think, talking about, hey, make sure you follow the Jag Bros and listen to our episodes. I think this is going to be one of the most interesting Jaguars off seasons we've had in a long time.
And to another reason, as we have pointed out, just so elementary, why have we never run like a pick route? Or it works in the red zone. You have one guy run the other way, kind of run into the defensive guy, opening up someone. That way you don't have to throw a tip drilled on the very edge of the end zone. It's just ridiculous that we can't get normal play calls in for this offense right now. To start a campaign, #fire Press Taylor. I don't care if it's in the off season. Start this now. Fire Press Taylor. I need a Twitter army so that way this franchise knows where we are at with Press Taylor. And if they keep him, then they are in for a world of hurt, because we will not rest until he is gone. He is the cancer to this team.
And, I've been really critical of Calvin Ridley's play, and I still am. Yet another game where Trevor's less than 50% going to Calvin Ridley. But now I'm really starting to wonder, which I don't love. You should always go 110%, but maybe he's giving up on plays because he's so tired of the play calling and he's just not going to say it. So I've been saying for over a month that the Jaguars need to walk away from Calvin Ridley this offseason, and I still believe it. But I'm also starting to think maybe it's not all on Calvin Ridley, some of these disconnections between him and Trevor. A lot of it's got to be he's just frustrated with Press Taylor too. And yeah, Joey, I think the Twitter army's already rolling, but let's get it in full steam.
Either him or Balaki. We can talk about that more in the offseason, because I'm a little underwhelmed too with some of the personnel, but it's pretty clear we're not getting the production that we should with the actual talent we do have on offense. So with that though, we are getting, I would say, the production or the best out of the production that we have on defense. We held the Ravens to 23 points, which at surface level is probably more of an average performance. And it was kind of another classic, hey, down to down, we were really, really good. there were 3 or 4 plays that the Ravens made that were sometimes the jump ball pass, for example, where Lamar Jackson runs out of 4 or 5 would-be sacks and then is able to throw the ball downfield to Isaiah Likely, who steals the ball from Williams, who is right there to potentially make an interception. But overall, I would say pretty solid, especially considering how many times the Jaguar offense really did not set them up in good field position or in good situations at all. But the Ravens did still have almost 400 yards of offense, only 145 yards passing, which was pretty solid. But the glaring hole, and something that Jacksonville tends to pride itself on, is we gave up 251 rushing yards, 150 or so of that just to the running backs. Very, very frustrating performance by them.
Yeah, something that the stats don't say, though, was that was a breakdown towards the end in the fourth quarter. The game really almost felt like it was lost during that jump ball that you're talking about, JT. Game's till 10-7. If Darius Williams comes down with that interception, then it doesn't allow the Ravens to go get a touchdown on us, gives the ball back, and then maybe we could get the lead. And then all of a sudden, we know how we play when we have the lead. It just seems like if we don't have the lead, then this team is not good enough to ever go get it back. So if we could have gotten that stop and made it easier for the offense to go get the lead, because once it went back to 10, it was too much to overcome for this team. Last year's team, no, we could go back and it didn't matter. We can bend and not break with the last year's team because they were going to go and fight to the end and go get 21 points in the fourth quarter, but not this year's team. This year's team, we can't be a bend defense because we have to have the lead. And it's just really unfortunate with this defense because it doesn't have the talent. It's very different. The offense has the talent and it's not performing. The defense doesn't have the talent, yet it is performing. And that is because once again, you have a competent coach and a non-competent coach. It is glaringly obvious when you have a side of the ball that where you don't have the talent, and we didn't go get draft picks and we didn't get free agent people to go help this defense, which would have really helped this team to go feed the actual coordinator that needs the talent because he can make them better versus a offensive team that doesn't have a coordinator that can actually call. And so you have talent that just sits around and is disconnected.
I think the only good thing is that I love Mike Cole, and I think he deserves to be an NFL head coach. But because of our recent losses and the offensive struggles, I think he'll get overshadowed. I honestly thought for 3 quarters, the defensive performance was amazing. You think about your starting safety is out, your number 1 corner, more or less, I guess. I don't even know where you necessarily rank Campbell, but he's out as well. So you have several guys, and they step up in big ways where the Ravens get great field position multiple times, 2 turnovers on offense that give them great field position. One time right inside the 20-yard line, and they held them to 10 points through 3 quarters. And yes, did they run the ball well? Obviously, that was a massive game, but I agree with you, Joey. A lot of that came in the fourth quarter where it's not only are they tired, they've been on the field nearly 35 minutes because the offense keeps turning over the ball or missing field goals. Oh, and also because you're disheartened. Your offense can't score the ball. You feel like, we gotta stop. We held them to 3 points. You only give up 2 touchdowns in this entire game to one of the top offenses in the league, and it feels like it doesn't matter. So it's hard to keep going in there over and over and stop the number 1 rush offense when it feels like, hey, it doesn't matter. We're not going to score any points anyways. So I thought our defense played phenomenal. And unfortunately, offense and special teams just let us down in massive ways.
Do you know who the defensive leader in tackles was in that game?
Yes, because I've looked at the stats.
Joey, did you look at it yet?
Was Chase on?
Do you have a guess?
No, not Jason.
No, it's not Jason. Do you know who led the defense and tackles? Usually it's Foye, but he was not the leader.
It's Wingard.
Yeah, it was Andrew Wingard. Which,
yeah,
first off,
but that
he had a great
sense.
game. He played up. He made a lot of great big time tackles. It's also a problem if your safety is your leading tackle in a game that they want to run the ball, because that's telling you that they're getting to the third level, first level being defensive line, second level being linebackers, third level being safeties. They're getting to the third level almost every single run, especially in the second half. Wingard had 10 tackles and 1 assist. Great game for him. That's a problem if your linebackers are not making those tackles, and those 3 or 4 yard plays all of a sudden turn into 7 or 8 yard runs. And I think that was a little bit frustrating too, because in the second half, when you really want a quick 3 and out, or you really want to be able to get a chance to mount some sort of magical comeback at home, they were leaning on us, and they're leaning on us with like Gus Edwards, who, like, Gus Edwards is fine. I've had him in fantasy before. He's great for scoring a touchdown, but he's not really some guy you want running all over you in the second half, getting 58 yards for Gus Edwards. And so that, I think, was kind of frustrating as well, that at times it felt like Aluakon and Lloyd were kind of washed up in the play, and talking about creativity in the run game, they had a really nice job. And it's a little concerning if your safety is making that many tackles in a game like this.
I think this is a weird game because you're going up against a guy that, frankly, the NFL has never seen before. Lamar Jackson is an athletic freak. He's a monster. He has almost 100 yards on the ground, and he played at the highest level. Look, my call out was the only way we win this game is if Trevor has a significantly better game than Lamar. And Trevor doesn't. And Lamar has a great game. He runs for 100 yards. He throws for about 160, 170 yards. And anytime that you can create like he creates, it opens up the whole field, because it's so hard. Your linebackers are always watching Lamar. You're trying to play contain because he's got 4.2 speed, and he's a big guy. He's quick. He's hard to bring down. So I get the concern because you just gave up a massive amount of yards on the ground. But I think most of that is because all your defense is so focused on Lamar. It's hard to just tackle an average running back because everybody's watching number 8 on the field.
Yeah, you're right, Jack, that it's a weird game, especially when you play the Ravens, because Lamar Jackson's got 8 seconds to throw the ball with how many jukes and everything that he pulls and scrambling. He's playing more and more like Patrick Mahomes, where he's not looking to really scramble and run like he can, but he's now looking to scramble and throw the ball. And so the secondary has to hold their coverages for 8 seconds, which is ridiculously long. Most routes, you run them in about 2 to 3 seconds. A longer developing one, maybe 4. That means by the time that they're done running the routes, they're running and just getting open. They're playing backyard football. That's one thing that our offense doesn't do. They run the route and then they stand still. And the coaching doesn't teach them, oh, Trevor's in trouble, he's moving around, let's go get open. No, our offense doesn't go get open. But they do, the Ravens do, and that's why they can extend the play and still, even when it breaks down, they can go get a big play because the quarterback and the wide receiver and the play caller are all in sync. They're like, just get open, find a way, and find him. And that's what they do. It's so hard to play defense in that way. And they were doing well. They did so well for 3 quarters. It gets tiring, though, when you have to defend for 8 seconds. You have to watch the running quarterback, the running back, and they also have a really good fullback who is in there throwing huge blocks. So I was watching, and that was really freeing them up, was that really good fullback. And so it's just a difficult time to play the Ravens. But we did such a good job. I really just feel so badly for Wingard, who is giving it his all. You watch him play, he's going 110%. You watch one of the plays where Foye has Lamar Jackson. He's taking him down, but he's still kind of standing up. And what does Wingard do? He goes out and goes and finishes the play. He puts his back or his helmet into Lamar Jackson's back, and he goes and knocks him down with a big hit. That's what good defenses do. Go light someone up. I really miss the aggressiveness that this defense had in the beginning of the season, jumping routes. When you'd see a tackle, they're going for strips. They're going to knock someone's head off. There's like 5 players around the ball. I don't really see that from the defense. They seem tired and they seem let down by this miserable offense that we have right now. And I feel bad for the defense, but they need to also play a little more aggressive. Stop playing prevent defense and catching people and go and knock someone's head off.
I think the Ravens are the AFC, not just number 1 seed, but they are the team to knock out. And this game, to me, is a barometer of where the Jaguars are. This is, we hoped, a team that would take a big step forward from last year, but we're essentially the same team. We'll probably finish right around the same record. Maybe we get 10 wins this season. And the defense has taken a slight step forward, which is nice, but the offense has taken a big step backwards. And so we're just kind of stuck in the same place on the treadmill.
This isn't the same team as last year. I'd say we're worse. We have better talent maybe, but we don't play as a team and it's too clunky. And I would much rather have a worse team that plays as a team and it's complementary than a team that has a bunch of talent that doesn't play as a team, that's super clunky and rides on emotion too much.
I agree with that. And look, I've already been hard on the coaching staff. I do think one of the big differences between this year and last year's team is just the injuries. We were one of the healthiest teams last year. This year, we're seeing probably an average amount of injuries in the NFL. I wouldn't say above average because, look, your starting quarterback's still there, although he's in the concussion protocol right now. Your starting running back is still there. Calvin Ridley, who's supposed to be your alpha receiver, is there. Your tight end's there. Most of your offensive line, while injured, is still playing. And then defensively, we've only had 1 to 2 guys out per game. So, like, in the grand scheme of things, it's pretty solid for the NFL. And so I think that's maybe one of the biggest differences. If you're fully healthy like we were pretty much the entire season last year, you should see some of that outperformance, especially in December and January, because you are the healthier teams.
I really don't want to hear the excuse of healthiness this season at all.
Yep, agreed.
Everyone has a ton of injuries. This year in the NFL, I've never seen so many injuries. It's not just the Jaguars. It's every single team. The biggest glaring issue, watch the sounds of the game. Watch last year's and watch this year's. There is a absolute feelingness of together and united, and all of the people know the goal and are moving towards it last year. It felt like a movie. No one wanted the season to end. No one wanted to leave the team. It was an incredible feeling. Watch it now. It's clunky. You don't see really anyone firing anyone up. After wins and losses, the excitement for everyone's not really there anymore. It just doesn't feel like they're together. And it is glaring by how disjointed they are. The defense gets a turnover, offense does nothing with it. Offense scores, defense lets up a touchdown. Those are not together. You score a touchdown, you need your defense to go stop them so that way you can go score again. Or your defense gets a turnover, then you go score, and so that way that turnover now has points to it. It's a togetherness, and this team is not together. The only time they felt together is when they went to London, and they still came back from London with all that togetherness. That's why we had injuries during our 5-win streak, and no one was talking about injuries there, even though Cisco was out, Campbell was out, Zay Jones was out. All those injuries still existed, yet we were still winning when we were playing as a team. This team is not playing as a team, and it is up to the freaking coaches to bring this team together. It is not up to the players. The players can call meetings and bring them together, yes, but it is coaching that brings a team together. It is coaching that teaches them to be a team. And I don't see that from Doug. I don't see that from Press. I don't see that at all.
I think it's both. I think you've got to have players hold each other accountable if you're going to play together as a team. And this, to me, felt like the perfect game to have a players-only meeting right after this game. And maybe they did, and we don't know. And certainly Trevor going into concussion protocol right after just adds insult to injury. But it felt like a game where, hey, because now is win or go home almost, because you need to go out and win these next 3 games, which, hey, they're very gettable. Tampa's going to be the hardest one this next week. But it felt like a game where it needed to be players getting together and saying, hey, no more of the same excuses. It is getting old. It is the same excuses over and over. We just got to clean up. We just keep beating ourselves. That's fine week 3, but week 15, no, that's not acceptable. This team is in trouble.
With that, let's shift to the special teams. Agnew played great with his return. We talked about him potentially having a couple big plays on special teams, and he did. He had 3 really, really nice returns, which obviously set up nothing. On the other side, though, is the kicking game. And this is, I think, the second or third time this season where Doug Peterson is all but called out McManus in the missed field goals. The interview right before half, he said, like, well, if we make our kicks, we'd be fine, or something to that nature. I'm going to say right now, I don't think McManus is going to be a Jaguar next year. And I don't get the vibe that Doug Peterson thinks very highly of him.
Yeah, I get the feeling that there's more disjointedness with the kicker and the coach. I've never seen a coach call out a kicker so much. They either just cut him or they protect him. I mean, it was really bad weather, swirling wind and everything like that. It's 50-plus yard field goal. I mean, it's your job. Yeah, you got to make it. It's unfortunate that he didn't, but the coach to kicker dynamic and chemistry definitely seems to be off. McManus doesn't seem happy ever being on this team. Like when he makes a field goal, it's just like another day at the office. Yeah, Doug Peterson calling out McManus for missed field goals. Don't do that. Either cut him or protect him like you protect everyone else. You protect every other player, but you don't protect this guy, which I'm fine with you not protecting players. To be honest, call them out, but don't just call out one specific player. It either has to go all the way or no way. And him calling out McManus and calling out no one else just shows you how disconnected the team is. Even on special teams, there's a disconnect. And it's just really saddening to look at this offense and this team and the coaches and see such disconnect.
It's a good point. But those 2 missed field goals were backbreaking. And yes, it was bad weather. But Justin Tucker did go 3 for 3 from field goals, shorter field goals, and 2 for 2 from extra points. I think if McManus hits those 2 field goals, it's a completely different game in terms of momentum. But I did want to give one other shout out because he's had some off games too. But Logan Cook had one of the special teams plays of the game back up into our 1 yard line and getting a 60-yard punt where Daniel Thomas makes a miraculous saving tackle. That was a very nice play. But I think it's time that, all right, we got 3 games left in the season. Sunday, Christmas Eve, we're in Tampa Bay. We come back home New Year's Eve for the Panthers. We go away to close the season in Tennessee against the Titans. Is there any hope for the Jaguars?
Yes, absolutely. There's hope. You have the talent. There's no reason this team should lose to any of these 3 teams, talent-wise. There's no reason that they should lose if Trevor's playing. So, yes, there's that ability to win, but you have to cut down the mistakes just in half. You just have to cut them in half. You don't have to get rid of them completely. Every team makes mistakes, and they need to learn that and just cut it in half and play loose. Quit playing tight. And then coaches, please figure out a way to bring this team together. I don't care if you have to rent out a hotel and they can't go home and then they just stay in the hotel the entire time, which they did in London. This team has to figure out a way to play as a team. They need the remember the Titans moment again, go off to camp, go do something to come back as a team. That was the only time we had a win streak is when we were playing as a team. That is the biggest thing that will turn this team around, and you can start winning games again, and you can make it to the playoffs and redefine yourself, but you have to play as a team. If that doesn't happen, then we lose.
just go win the next 3 games. Treat the game in Tampa like it's a playoff game, because in some ways it could be, because there is a very real possibility if you lose this Sunday and the Texans and the Colts win, because guess what? They're not playing terribly difficult schedule, that you look up and you're in the hunt and no longer even have a playoff position. So go take care of business.
Doesn't matter. If you lose to the Buccaneers, then we don't deserve to go to the playoffs.
You have to find a way to do it. You haven't gone back-to-back playoffs in Jacksonville since the 90s. So just find a way to do it. This season would be an abject disaster if you find a way to miss the playoffs with how this team is played at times this year, in the talent that is on the roster. I mean, there have been times where we've thought this is a top 5 type of team. So to then completely miss the playoffs would be there'd be some problems.
This season's already a disaster, I think.
Which, I got to laugh a little bit, Joey, because we were both tweeting from the Jag Bros on Sunday night and Monday. And I'm tweeting, the wheels are off, 3 losses in a row. We lose 2 games to backup quarterbacks. And you're the one posting, hey, the season's not over. We can still do this. We just got to go win. We're still in first in the division. So I have to laugh a little bit that I feel like it's reversed a lot here on the podcast. But the reality is, and you tweet this, I thought these words were great. If you go win the next 3 weeks, you go into the playoffs 11-6 with some momentum. These past 3 weeks have been terrible. All of it's forgotten, and you take momentum into the playoffs.
I'm trying to help them play a little looser, and then also help some fans who are like to the extreme fire, get rid of Trevor Lawrence. Let's not go to the extreme. Yes, we can still get to the playoffs and we can still redefine ourselves. That's what I'm trying to say. And I believe it literally all comes down to playing as a team. And I just have a feeling that it's not going to happen. I don't think we have a leader on this team, to be honest. I love Trevor Lawrence. I think he's such a great talent, but he's too cool of a dude to be that loud leader that we need. There's no one on the offensive line except Cam, who is that loud leader. Walker Little does a good job, but he doesn't talk. Ezra Cleveland just joined the team. It's not going to be him. Luke Fortner's terrible. Brandon Sheriff needs to hang it up. Go retire, buddy. And then Anton Harrison's a rookie, so he's not really going to be that leader. The only other place it could have came from is either Zay Jones, who's been plagued by injuries this entire season, or Christian Kirk, who was starting to become somewhat of a leader, I think, on this team, and then he just got hurt. So there's just not a leader voice, unfortunately. So I don't see this team coming together. And that's why I'm depressed.
Which I will say, you can still be a leader and injured. Just watch my Florida State Seminoles. Jordan Travis has still led this team and has still been the heart and soul of the team, even though he has a broken leg. So you can still lead. But yeah, I agree. Someone needs to step up. Ideally, it'll be Trevor, your franchise quarterback that, hey, maybe you're going to pay an obscene amount of money in the offseason. But someone on the offense, because I do think the defense has some leaders in Josh Allen and Aluakon, but offensively, where we're so disjointed the most, yeah, it's a lack of leadership.
Frustrating team all around. But we're going to be right here with you, suffering and living right now the lows, but hopefully soon the highs again, as we try to salvage the fact that we still have a 71% chance of making the playoffs today, despite having lost 3 games in a row. And you know what? I think we should send this episode off the way the team ran off the field on Sunday, with a big, loud boo.